This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabotai, we continue in Sefer Melachim. If you remember last week, we spoke about Shlomo HaMelech getting rid of Shimei ben Gera. Right? And Shimei ben Gera was a big tzaddik, but he had averot, he had certain sins that he needed to have atonement for. And what was those sins? He was not nice to David HaMelech. He cursed David HaMelech, thinking that David HaMelech was a Rasha. He thought David HaMelech was Rasha. And he was wrong. David HaMelech was actually a really big tzaddik. And it was a big mistake that Shimei ben Gera did. And David HaMelech understood that and realized that Shimei needed to be punished for what he did in this world so he doesn't get punished in the next world. So he tells Shimei ben Gera, David himself told Shimei ben Gera he will not kill him. He didn't want it to seem like it's revenge. Right? Adam, who's that? You got to pay attention. Okay? Focus on what I'm doing over here. He didn't want to go ahead and kill him. He said, I will not touch you. But he tells Shlomo HaMelech, you have to find a way, eliminate Shimei ben Gera. So what does he do? Shlomo HaMelech tells Shimei right away. He tells him, I need you to stay in Yerushalayim. Do not leave Yerushalayim under the penalty of death. If you leave, you step foot in out of Yerushalayim, it's over. And for 3 years, Shimei ben Gera said, my king, I accept. Of course, he didn't leave for 3 years, until 2 of his slaves ran away to Pelishtim, to the king Achish Melech Pelishtim of Gat. And Shimei ben Gera had a choice. Either I chase after them, or I lose my slaves. He said, I will chase after them. And we said a number of reasons why Shimei ben Gera made this calculation. At the end of the day, Shlomo HaMelech found out about it. He was upset. He called Shimei ben Gera. He says, you should not have done this. You violated an oath of God. And now you will have to die as a result of violating the command of the king. So Shlomo, before he executes Shimei ben Gera, he tells him that you have to realize this all was divine providence. It was all because HaKadosh Baruch Hu put in your mind to make a mistake so that you should be punished for the sins that you committed against my father. And all of this was pre-planned by HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to punish Shimei ben Gera in this world, because really he was a big tzaddik. As we said, his great-great-great-grandson was Mordechai and Esther. And therefore we see the person was very righteous. He just needed atonement for this sin. So now Shimei ben Gera is out of the picture, and the Navi tells us, V'hamamlacha nechona biyad Shlomo. The kingship was under the full grip and authority of Shlomo HaMelech. There were no more rebellions, no more brothers that were against him, no more people trying to kill him, no Yoav to take the matter into his own hands. Everything was now kadat v'chadin, settled. And Shlomo turns his attention elsewhere. Now that the internal conflict was no more, there was peace. He can spread the peace in other places. And the Torah tells us, Vayithaten Shlomo et Paro melech Mitzrayim. Vayikach et bat Paro. Shlomo HaMelech marries the daughter of Paro. Why does Shlomo HaMelech marry the daughter of Paro? So as I mentioned, peace was very, very important. And one of the ways to forge peace is to marry what otherwise could be an enemy. To marry the enemy's daughters was a form of creating peace. Shlomo HaMelech wanted the close neighbors, especially Egypt is very close to Eretz Yisrael. He wanted the surrounding people that could be potential enemies of the Jewish people to be allies of the Jewish people. So the way to do that, even though he himself did not particularly find Bat Paro to be a suitable woman for him, he wasn't attracted to her, he wasn't interested in her inherently, but he knew for the kingship, it was a correct thing for him to marry Bat Paro, so that way he will have a strong alliance with Egypt, and then people will be, all of the surrounding nations will be even more scared to attack his empire, because if you attack Shlomo or the Jewish people, you're also attacking the Egyptian empire. And that's why Shlomo HaMelech built a very strong alliance with Bat Paro. This is kind of like the simple reason. But in truth, we have to ask a question. The timing of when Shlomo HaMelech married Bat Paro is not really exact. The Navi seems like he killed Shim'i ben Gera, and then he married Bat Paro, but that wasn't really the truth. It was 4 years later, when Shlomo HaMelech was building Beit HaMikdash, he built the temple, that's when he married Bat Paro. So this is this perek is out of order. It's not really precise. And the commentaries, the Midrashim ask, why is this put here when he actually only married her much later on, 4 years later? It says, well, the reason the Torah specifically put it here, it's because it's connected to the death of Shim'i ben Gera. And this actually teaches us a very important lesson. The Gemara says, Le'olam yadur adam b'makom rabo. If you have a choice, where to live? You could live in this neighborhood, that neighborhood, this state, that state. You could live in a lot of places. How should you decide where to live? Where is the best place for you to live? So I'll tell you what the Gemara says. Gemara says, find where your Rav is living. Who is the rabbi that you're closest with? Who is your greatest mentor? And move there. Le'olam yadur adam b'makom rabo. You should live next to your Rav. Why? Because Shlomo HaMelech, as long as Shim'i ben Gera was alive, he lived next to him. Where did he live? In Yerushalayim. Right next to Shlomo. He never thought of the idea of marrying Bat Paro. It was never even a possibility in his mind to marry Bat Paro. The minute that Shim'i ben Gera is executed and no longer near Shlomo HaMelech, he finally came up with this idea. I should marry the daughter of Paro. If Shim'i ben Gera would have been around, Shim'i ben Gera would have come to Shlomo, even as the king, and told him, you're wrong. You shouldn't marry her. Asur, don't do it. But because Shim'i ben Gera was no longer alive, Shlomo HaMelech was a little bit less careful with the decisions that he made. And he made a miscalculated decision. He marries Bat Paro. He had good reason, he had good intention, but at the end of the day it was a big mistake. You know, the Gemara tells us that the night that Shlomo marries Bat Paro, that very same night, there was an angel that came down from the heaven. You might remember him from last year's Shiurim with Daniel. There was an angel whose name was Gavriel. And Gavriel, a lot of times he's given the mission to save. He is a very powerful angel in heaven. He's one of the Malachei Hasharet. And it says that when Shlomo married Bat Paro, Gavriel came down from the heavens. And he put, not in Eretz Yisrael, he went to this place that was actually in the sea. Near the sea, right by the coast. He went there. And he made, you know what a steak is? You ever heard of a steak of like a tent? Not like food. A steak of a tent. He put na'atz bayam, kaneh bayam. He took like one of these reeds, like a pole, and he puts it in the ground of the sea, the seabed. He plants it there. And sure enough, what happens when you have a stick in the seabed? A lot of the algae and a lot of the things start gathering around it because the sea has a lot of junk, and then the stick kind of holds it. So it starts piling up and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger over hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. You're talking about the whole period of the first Beit HaMikdash, the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash, 600-700 years later. That little stick ended up becoming so big that it ended up being a whole entire province, an island, a country of its own. And that country is Rome of Italy. The empire of Rome began where? In the marriage of Shlomo HaMelech with Bat Paro. That's what started. Now, if you know anything about Rome and the Roman Empire, the one thing they're very, very known for is the destruction of our Beit HaMikdash. What nobody else was able to do, the Romans were able to do. They were able to break the fortifications that were so impressive, so great. If anybody looks now at the Kotel, how many of you, I assume a lot of you might have been at the Kotel, right? How many of you went to Israel? Everybody that went to Israel goes to the Kotel. If anybody's ever been there, you see giant stones that are bigger than the person himself. Big stones, wide, high. The walls are so high up. You try to move anything, you can't move it. There's no way to move it. Even if you brought a car and you tried, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't move because it's so heavy. You're talking about the weight of like 100 elephants. So much is the weight of these stones. The Romans were able to break most of the walls of Beit HaMikdash, destroy Beit HaMikdash in a war, and defeat Am Yisrael. And you know how that all started? The power of Rome, where did it develop? Shlomo HaMelech marries the daughter of Paro. That was the first time there was weakness in Am Yisrael. Why do you think the marriage to Bat Paro, which was about the building of Beit HaMikdash, the night of the building, how could that be the destruction of Beit HaMikdash? So I'll tell you why. Some of the commentaries are bothered by another question. How could it be that Shlomo HaMelech marries her? How could it be Shlomo HaMelech marries Bat Paro? Bat Paro was a daughter of a Jewish person or a non-Jewish person? Non-Jewish. That means she was not Jewish. Now, I know that Shlomo HaMelech would never marry someone not Jewish. So of course, she converted to Judaism. But if you're Shlomo HaMelech, think about it. You can marry any single person in Am Yisrael. You can marry anybody you want in Am Yisrael. The greatest tzaddiket, the daughter of the biggest Rav, he could have married anybody. Why would he choose, out of all the Jewish girls that he could marry, why would he choose to marry a non-Jewish girl? Yes, she converted, I get it, but she was raised as a non-Jew. And Paro taught her all the non-Jewish ways and all of the avodah zarah of the Egyptians. So she converted, but so much of what she knows is not Jewish. She didn't go to Cheder, she didn't go to Jewish school, she didn't go to Bet Yaakov. She went to the Egyptian, Pyramid University. That's where she went. So what? Why would Shlomo HaMelech think that it's smart to marry such a woman? And in truth, you can ask this question not just on Shlomo HaMelech. There seems to be a lot of great leaders in Am Yisrael that married women that weren't from the Jewish people. Let's give another example. Does anybody here know of Shimshon? You heard of Shimshon? He was Hagibor, he was a shofet. I like to call him Shimshon a shofet. He was also, less famously, a judge in Am Yisrael, which means that everybody in the Jewish people, they had questions in Torah and what they're supposed to do. They would go to Shimshon. He wasn't just a very strong man and a good warrior, powerful warrior, but he was also Talmid Chacham. He was the leader of the generation. Very interestingly, who does Shimshon marry? He marries a woman from the Pelishtim, who are enemies of the Jewish people. He could have married anybody. His parents even said, Manoach, his father, says, I don't understand, there's not enough Benot Yisrael, look how many wonderful young ladies there are. Why is he marrying someone from Pelishtim? And the Torah says, the parents didn't know the reason, but there was a very good reason why he married someone from Pelishtim. Yes, did she convert? Of course she converted. She wasn't a Goya, she was Jewish, but she learned the ways of the Goyim. Why does he do this? The same thing is true. A great man named Yoshua bin Nun. Yoshua bin Nun, the student of Moshe Rabbeinu, also married someone that wasn't part of Am Yisrael. He marries Rachav. And Rachav was not of the Jewish nation. She converted. He married her. Why? Why are all these tzaddikim marrying non-Jewish Girls, right? It's a very strong question. There were some others. We know that, of course, Boaz also married someone that was not Jewish originally, Ruth HaMoaviyah. She came from Moab. She got married to a great tzaddik named Boaz. So we have to understand what's going on. How come it's always the leaders that are doing this? What's the reason behind this? So let me tell you a very big secret. Many people, even people that are very old, don't know this secret. When Avraham Avinu became such a great man and was connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and sacrificed his life and miracles happened to him, the Satan, the bad angel, he was jealous. He comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He says, I want a descendant of Avraham Avinu. I want someone from Avraham Avinu to be mine. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's true in a certain sense, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to play even. It has to be fair. You can't have just good and not bad. So God says, I promise you I'm going to give you somebody from the children of Avraham Avinu. He makes a promise. Now, Avraham Avinu, he has Yitzhak. Now, the Satan's not interested in Ishmael. He's like, give me somebody good. What are you giving me, Ishmael? I don't want Ishmael. I want Yitzhak, the line of Yitzhak. So first, the Satan really believed he was going to get Yitzhak. How come he believed that? Because what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Avraham? Go take Yitzhak and bring him as an offering. Since when does God take human offerings? Since when? So Satan says, for sure, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving me my part. This offering, this Yitzhak is for me. So he was happy. He was excited. Baruch Hashem, I'm going to have Yitzhak. I can't wait for the Akedat Yitzhak. What happened was, he saw that it didn't really happen. Yitzhak wasn't offered, right? The ram was put instead. So God sort of tricked the Satan. He was excited. He took it away from him. No, you're not getting Yitzhak. Yitzhak is going to live and get married and have kids. So already the Satan is disappointed. He is broken. I thought I was going to get Yitzhak. I didn't end up getting Yitzhak. So now he was really upset. He comes demanding, I want one of the children of Yitzhak. I want somebody good. Give me a good one. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Melachim, call out the Neshama. You know who's Neshama? No. No. He's not interested in Esav. He wants a tzaddik. No. Call out the Neshama of David HaMelech. Bring the Neshama of David HaMelech. Now, they bring out the Neshama of David HaMelech and they show it. What do you think about this one? He's like, wow, that one is amazing. I want him. I want him. He was excited. Now, the plan originally was that Yitzhak was supposed to have two sons. You know where they're supposed to be? Yaakov and David. This is what the Divrei Yoel says. The Satmarav. It says, two sons of Yitzhak. Yitzhak, he received prophecy. He saw that his two sons were actually supposed to be Yaakov and David. And in his mind, he didn't see Esav. This is Esav. This is the Neshama of David HaMelech. Now they did that in Shamayim on purpose. They tricked Yitzchak. Anybody ever stop and think about why would Yitzchak want to give a bracha to Esav? Doesn't he know who Esav is? They hid from him that it was Esav. In his mind, yes, the name was Esav, but the neshama, he thought the neshama that went into Esav was actually David's neshama. So he's looking at him as the future king of Am Yisrael. He sees greatness in him. He wants to give him a bracha. He wants to give him a blessing. Why else would Yitzhak give Esav a bracha? Because he thought this was David HaMelech. In Shamayim, what they did was, when Rivka got pregnant with twins, they decided, we're going to switch. We're going to trick the Yetzirah. They replaced David's neshama. They said, not David, we're not giving him. It's like if you're holding the Havdi two cards. And someone says, give me the good card, right? And you're holding a joker and you're holding like a 4, right? So you say, Tov, I'll give him the joker, I'm going to be left with a 4. You say, Tov, I'll give him the 4. That's my best card. You say, give him the 4. So instead of giving David HaMelech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, no, there's going to be Yaakov. Switch David with Esav. If you ever noticed in the Navi, it says David HaMelech was also red. He was also red, and he also had the tendency to kill. He did kill. He killed a lot of people. To the point that even Shmuel said, wait a second, God, you want me to make this person the king? I see him, he's shofech damim, he's a murderer. God says, don't think of Esav when you look at him. Don't think of Esav. Esav murders indiscriminately. He kills whoever it bothers him. This one only kills if the rabbis, if the Sanhedrin tell him to kill, he'll kill. He doesn't kill unilaterally. He kills when it's the right thing to do. He's different than Esav. So you see, even Shmuel HaNavi was not able to tell the difference between David HaMelech and Esav. He was close to Esav, but he was tzaddik and he was rasha. So they switched David for Esav. Yitzhak doesn't know. Yitzhak thinks it's David. Everybody thinks it's David. Even the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, he was so happy. He's like, I'm getting David. What did he do during the pregnancy? During the pregnancy, he injected venom into Esav. He's like, I'm going to go ahead and make him mine. He put his stamp on him. He injected evilness into him. He said, this one's going to be mine. He didn't realize that it wasn't the neshama of David. It was only till much later that finally he realized that he was being deceived. Now, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu tricking the Satan? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to hide the line of David HaMelech, the line of the kingship, needs to remain hidden. If the Satan picks up that the king is going to be from him, he's going to go ahead and attack. He's going to try to mess up the plan. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to do everything in secrecy. The line of David HaMelech always was a little bit more secret, a little bit more tricky. Boaz marries Ruth. No way that David HaMelech is going to come from there. I mean, she's a Moaviyah. How's she going to come from there? No, from there, under the radar, that's where David HaMelech comes from. When people least expect it, the king emerges. And that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is able to hide the line of David HaMelech. So, to a certain extent, there's a sefer called Shem Shmuel. And in this sefer he explains very beautifully. You have to understand that every one of the nations of the world has powers. Every nation has a power. Am Yisrael, what's our power? Who knows our power? What? Yes, Torah, but one more specifically, we're very merciful. As a nation, our midah, our characteristics, mercy, kindness, we're very bashful, we're shy. That's who we are as a nation. Now, mercy, kindness, and bashful, 99.9% of the time is excellent. But sometimes you have to be strong, especially a person who's a leader, a king. He has to be strong and he has to confront enemies. The Jewish people, we have enemies, people that look to kill us. So you need someone to stand strong and defend and not have mercy. Sometimes you have Amalek. And what's the mitzvah? To kill Amalek. Not to have mercy on Amalek. Shaul HaMelech had mercy on Amalek and he was punished for having mercy. You need someone strong, but where's that characteristic going to come from? It's not in the genes of Am Yisrael. It's not by us. We're merciful. It has to come from the Goyim. So therefore, all of the great leaders of Am Yisrael understood that from the Goyim, if you take the best, and you purify it, and you have a leader of a generation, not just a regular person, but a leader of the generation, takes a Goy where he sees the Neshama is very holy, and he converts that Neshama to Judaism, you're able to bring the qualities of the Goyim for good and make it part of Am Yisrael. So therefore, when Boaz married Ruth, he saw that she was a righteous woman and that she's going to bring good qualities into Am Yisrael. He married her. And indeed, David HaMelech was born, a great-great-grandson of Ruth. Why? Because he took the good. And David HaMelech was a king that knew when to have mercy and knew when to stand strong. Where did he get that from? He got that from the Gaon of Moab. This is what the Shem Shmuel says. So sometimes from the Goyim, actually there are good qualities, but you have to be a super skilled. You have to be a person like on the level of Shlomo HaMelech to pick up on who's good, who's not exactly good. And from those people to select. So Shlomo HaMelech sees Bat Paro and he's analyzing deeply into her, and he sees, you know what? Tzaddiket. She's a person that's going to bring good qualities into Am Yisrael. So he decides that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to marry her. Now he made a mistake. Why? Because even though on the surface, and it appeared to be like she really cared, and she really wanted to be Jewish, and she said everything she needed to say, and she would pray 3 times a day, and she would go ahead and she was tzaddiket on the outside, but somewhere deep in her heart, where Shlomo HaMelech was not able to see, there was still avodah zarah. There was still goy. And instead of bringing the good qualities of Mitzrayim into Am Yisrael, what happened? The bad qualities of the Egyptians ended up becoming part of the Jewish people. So the Jews became infected with the negative avodah zarah of the goyim. Shlomo HaMelech was not able to pick up, with all of his wisdom and all of his greatness, he failed to detect on the radar the concern, because it was so fine, it was so small, that most people are not able to see it. And even Shlomo wasn't able to see it. And that's why Shlomo HaMelech sort of made a very small mistake, but it ended up becoming from small to very big. And that's what it means that Gabriel went ahead and he took a stick and put it into the sea. Who notices? If someone now were to go take a stick and put it into the sea, would anybody notice? Would anybody see anything differently? No. But over 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, 700 years, all of a sudden it's no longer a stick, it became a mountain. And even though it was so small in the times of Shlomo, from that so small, slowly but surely, avodah zarah became a little bit closer to Am Yisrael. And over the years, it became more entrenched and more established and more avodah zarah, until the point that Beit HaMikdash was no longer able to sustain. And therefore, it really was the first event in the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. So Shlomo HaMelech had good intentions. He wanted to bring peace. He wanted to bring all of the nations closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's very good. But he made a mistake. So now the Navi continues and says, when Shlomo HaMelech married Bat Paro, he brought her to the city of David until the building of Beit HaMikdash was inaugurated and put into use. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background. There's something called Bamot. It's very important to understand this throughout the Navi. Whenever there is an established Mishkan, like in Shiloh or the Beit HaMikdash, if a person wants to bring a private offering, let's say I want to go to my backyard, and I say, I love God so much, I'm not bringing idol worship, chas v'shalom. I want to bring a sacrifice to God, but I want to do it in my own backyard. I'm going to build an altar, I'll build my own mizbeach out of stones, and I'll bring on it a fire, korban, and everything. Is one allowed to do that? So if there is Beit HaMikdash, or if there is a Mishkan, like in the Mishkan of Shiloh, nobody is allowed to make private altars. You have to bring korbanot in the Mishkan. You want to bring a korban, you want to bring a sacrifice, travel to Shiloh and go bring it. Now, 60 years before the building of the Mikdash, the Mishkan of Shiloh was destroyed. It was destroyed. The Pilishtim conquered it. The Pilishtim destroyed it. And what happened? As a matter of fact, the Pilishtim actually took the Aron. The Aron itself they took. But they became so afraid of having the Aron, they were afraid that it was going to just kill them, that they gave it back. They said, no, you guys take it, we don't want it, it's too dangerous for us. They just gave it back to the Jews. And David HaMelech takes the Aron and actually transfers it to the city of Nov. The Mishkan of Shiloh no longer existed. The Aron itself moved to Nov, and the Aron moved to Nov, and then eventually moved to Yerushalayim, and the Mizbeach went from Nov to Giv'on. So the big altar, the big Mizbeach, actually moved. The whole time after the destruction of Shiloh, every single individual that wanted to bring a korban in his own backyard was allowed to. This is what's called Bamat Yahid. You have your private altar, everyone is allowed to bring a korban in the private altar. Why? Because there's no more Mishkan. Yes, there's a Mizbeach, but it's not as official. and it's not the same capacity as a Mishkan, and everybody was allowed to bring the korbanot. So the Torah tells us here in the Navi, Rak ha'am mizabechim babamot. The whole nation is bringing sacrifices on their own private altars. Ki lo nivna bait l'shem Adonai. Because there was no Bet HaMikdash. The minute Bet HaMikdash is going to be built, what's going to happen? All of those private altars can no longer be used. It's asur to use them anymore. So listen to what the pasuk now says. Vayehav Shlomo et Adonai lalechet bechukot David Aviv. Shlomo HaMelech is in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He loves God. The one thing that he didn't do, Rak babamot u'mezabeach u'maktir. Rashi learns, the Torah criticizes Shlomo HaMelech. Why is the Torah criticizing? He loves God. Why are you criticizing him? What took you 4 years to build Bet HaMikdash? He didn't yet start building the Bet HaMikdash until 4 years after he became king. Torah says, why did you wait? It's going to take time to build Bet HaMikdash. You're right. But start on day one. Why did you wait 4 years to even start the process of building Bet HaMikdash? Torah criticizes Shlomo for delaying. Now I want to ask you a question. If Shlomo loves HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much, why doesn't he build Bet HaMikdash on day one? Why did he wait 4 years? Why did he make such a mistake if he loves God so much? And the answer is, Shlomo HaMelech, you have to understand, everything about Shlomo is about the love of God. Ahavat Hashem was everything, his whole life. The theme, remember I started? Every tzaddik has a theme. The theme of David HaMelech, the theme of Shlomo, Ahavat Hashem. Love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That was the theme of Shlomo HaMelech. So why does he build Bet HaMikdash? Listen to what he says. Now, on day one, if I build Bet HaMikdash, all of those people that are bringing korbanot in their backyards will no longer be allowed to do that. Which means that if a person wants to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he won't be able to do it in his house. He won't be able to say, I'm so inspired, let me bring a korban. Rather, he's going to have to take the animal, go to Yerushalayim, bring it in the temple, and there are going to be, tell me, more or less korbanot? Less! Because if you could bring it in your own backyard, you can actually establish a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your own home. But now you're going to have to do it and travel and go far distance. It's going to be much more difficult, and your closeness with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be distant. So Shlomo HaMelech actually 4 years sort of delayed because he loved HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much, he wanted every Jew to feel connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then he realized, so yes, that's true, but I still have to do my responsibility to build Bet HaMikdash. So the delay was actually out of his love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But nevertheless, it was a mistake. He shouldn't have thought that calculation, because at the end of the day, he has a responsibility to build Bet HaMikdash. Before the building of Bet HaMikdash, we said, where was the Mishkan? Where was the Mizbeach? The altar was in the city of Giv'on. The city of Giv'on had an altar. And David HaMelech, for all of the years of David HaMelech, he never once brought any korban outside of the area of the Mizbeach of Giv'on, or where the Aron was placed in Yerushalayim. He never did a Bamat Yahid. David HaMelech, even though he was allowed to, never did it. Why not? Because he didn't want anybody to have any perception of him doing anything close to Avodah Zarah. So he would only bring in very specific locations. Shlomo HaMelech didn't do like David. Shlomo HaMelech built Bamot Yahid in various places. But this time Shlomo HaMelech goes to the city of Giv'on, and he says, I'm not just going to bring one korban. I feel on such a high spiritual level that I'm going to bring 1,000 sacrifices. And Shlomo HaMelech takes 1,000 animals, and that day he brings one korban, another korban, 1,000 sacrifices out of his closeness and his love for God. Shlomo HaMelech is on such a high spiritual level. All of Am Yisrael is on such a high level. There's no Avodah Zarah. Everybody's keeping the Torah. Everybody's keeping the mitzvot. God comes to Shlomo in a prophecy. And Shlomo HaMelech, his whole life, wanted to be so close to God God says, I see Shlomo HaMelech, how great of a tzaddik you are. How pure your heart is, how much you love me. And I know that you desire more than anything else to get close to me. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to do something for you that I've never done to anybody before you. I'm going to give you permission to ask one thing from me. One thing. Only one. You can ask whatever you want, and I will give it to you. It's one wish that he has to ask. Now Shlomo HaMelech could choose a lot of things. There's so many things in the world, right? A person can become famous. He could have a beautiful house. He could be rich, have clothing. He could be, a person that is looked up to by everyone. He's already the king, so he doesn't have to ask for that. There's so many things he could ask for. What does Shlomo HaMelech choose to ask from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will fulfill his wish? We will see Be'ezrat Hashem next week.
I know. He wants to talk to.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.